consume stories and maps onto reality, and that's why the central narrative is falling apart.
Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
We must see the central narrative for the fiction that it is. We are Americans.
While elections are sometimes messy, this was a secure election.
The founders began the fight for human liberty and self-governance, and it's up to us to finish the job.
I tell you what, we are in a truth emergency right now.
This is the end game.
All the people that have gone out there against the mainstream media and said, you're going to call us racist, you're going to call us potential Timothy McVeighs, fuck you. War.
Immensely seductive. Quite sure he's right. An obsessionally neurotic. Pretty dangerous, in fact.
Do you mean you doubt your powers to convince him?
Worse than that. What I'm afraid of is his power to convince me.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories.
All right, I'll say it.
We're talking about putting a manifestly irresponsible man on national television.
Sweetheart, be reasonable.
All right, everybody. It is Wednesday, December 11th, 2024, the 1421st day of dystopia. I'm your moderator, Chris Paul. Oh, let's be reasonable. Welcome to the Wednesday subscriber stream, everybody. I have not been paying attention to whether or not anybody has been submitting questions on the Substack. I will check on that later. Oh, you know what? How about that? It looks like there are some. So happy, joy. We will get to that at some point down the road. I will keep an eye on the chat. And otherwise, I don't think that there's a whole lot to talk about before we get started. So let's just get right up into that mix. And I want to start with some fun stuff today. Let's have some fun, for crying out loud. No one says we can't have fun. We have to have some fun. Oh, man. There we are. Let's get that. Let's get all this fun lined up. That's what we need to do. All right, here's how we're going to line up the fun. All right, so we're going to start out right here with John Fetterman, at least one of them. Hard to say which one. Joining Truth Social. Here it is, John Fetterman. Yesterday, my first truth. The Trump hush money and Hunter Biden cases were both bullshit, and pardons are appropriate. Hey, better man, what about the E. Jean Carroll sexual assault bullshit? What about the business fraud? He says weaponizing the judiciary for blatant partisan gain diminishes the collective faith in our institutions and sows further division. So he wants to protect those institutions. Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg responds to Trump's motion to dismiss hush money case. MSNBC reporting John Fetterman reacting, at least one of the Fettermen, and it's impossible to know which. His Truth Social profile says that he is a dad, a husband, and a U.S. Senator for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. He's now being followed by 29,600-ish people, or accounts, I should say, on Truth Social, and is not following anyone. How bold and leaderly for him to know that he is the captain of his own ship and there are no shipmates. I responded to him, of course, as I had to. I wanted to welcome John Fetterman to Truth Social. So I said, hello, sir. You have to be polite, of course. Please tell me you are one of the good you are the good one of the Fettermen, number 7. If you are number 1 or the one who was a walking COVID vaccine victim, I will be extremely disappointed. And I guess we'll find out which of the Fettermen he is. Somebody spurred out in my comments, very, very upset that I was implying that there would be more than one of the Fettermen, as if, you know, they could be a clone, which I didn't say and don't believe, or a mask, or an actor, or an AI, a body double, a stunt double. It could be that. I don't know what the explanation for why so many Fettermen have appeared before us. He's clearly not a legitimately elected senator from Pennsylvania. So you've got one level of fakery already involved, and he's certainly playing along with it. It's not like he's saying, hey, guys, I know I didn't get elected, but as long as I'm in this office, I'm going to red pill you. The dude was using a computer to speak and hear like 3 months before we're told he was elected. He was elected over Dr. Oz, by the way. Donald Trump's election strategy is to ruin narratives, okay? When Donald Trump decides that narratives are going to be ruined, he puts his endorsement down on that candidate and ruins narratives a lot of the time. And I did an episode way back on this called The Trump Endorsement, if I am not mistaken. And let me just check this. I like to make sure, because I you know, and people might still not be convinced by the argument, and that's all good. But you know, as we go on down the line, it's good to look back at some of these arguments and see if we have gotten any closer to being proven right about some of these things. Oh man, it's not called that, and it's going to take me time to figure out. Gosh, I think it's this one. I think it's Can't Hear Trump Part 2. Yep, that's what it is. The meaning of the Trump endorsement. It's in an episode from May 31st, 2023. Can't Hear Trump Part 2, Milk Toast. So if you go to that article, you can hear my full argument about what I believe the Trump endorsement means. So yeah, there are levels of fakery to John Fetterman. Obviously, goes into the Senate in his shorts. He is a walking humiliation ritual for the institution of the U.S. Senate. And I love that about him. And if he happens to wake up a few normies, you know, all the better, whatever. I don't really care that much about that project at this point. But if he helps do that, then wonderful. I'm glad that there's some purpose to having to watch this interminable farce that we pretend is American politics. And yeah, maybe we'll be stuck here forever. It's all good. Let's go to Entertainment Weekly, an outlet we don't go to often. Entertainment Weekly, Romy, no way. Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson to make Broadway debut in And Juliet. Wow. They have a Broadway show called And Juliet where they remove Romeo. Come on, man. Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson is ready to achieve her teenage dream. And here's the dream, by the way. The subheadline, Jackson will be accomplishing her dream of becoming the first Black female Supreme Court justice to appear on a Broadway stage. What a ridiculous, ridiculous lifelong journey. And dream, I mean. Imagine a teenager being like, I hope one day I become the first Black female Supreme Court justice, and to top it off, I'm on Broadway. No, that definitely never, ever, ever happened. The justice will officially make her Broadway debut in an undisclosed walk-on role at the evening performance of the Tony-nominated jukebox musical and Juliet at 8 p.m. on December 14th for just one night only. Immediately after the show, Jackson will also lead a talk-back discussion with the audience at the Stephen Sondheim Theater. So that means when you see headlines on Friday, Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson says that Trump blah, 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 and the blah, blah, blah at her Q&A after her first Broadway performance. Oh, man. And you know there's going to be that article. She's going to make some headline with some bullshit that she said. Guess we'll find out, right? 2 days. Check my work. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they won't even do a single article on it. It's a full circle moment for the justice who wrote in her recently released memoir, Lovely One, that she long wished to fulfill my fantasy of becoming the first Black female Supreme Court justice to appear on a Broadway stage. So she wrote this in her memoir. This was her fantasy. It wasn't enough to become the first Black female Supreme Court justice. Nope. It would be like Babe Ruth calling his shot, hitting a home run, then hitting another home run, then being like, it was actually my lifelong dream to hit 2 home runs in a row, the first of which I would call. What a strange, strange dream to have. I mean, this is amazing. I'm so happy about it. Whatever. Let's keep going for just a second. With her stage debut, Jackson becomes the latest Supreme Court justice to make her mark both on stage and in the courtroom, following in the footsteps of the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who similarly starred for one night only as the Duchess of Krakenthorpe in the Washington National Opera's production of The Daughter of the Regiment in 2016. So she's now taking away Ruth Bader Ginsburg's pro-woman Supreme Court justice accomplishments. What an amazing storyline Ketanji Brown Jackson has had. The nomination hearings where she let everybody know that she was not a biologist. Let me see if I can find this. I think that this video probably warrants another viewing. Where is it? Ketanji Brown Jackson is not a biologist. There are so many biologists. How does anyone know that Ketanji Brown Jackson is the first female anything unless they are biologists? Apparently, the biologists have told Ketanji Brown Jackson that she is a woman, and Ketanji Brown Jackson is just trusting the experts about her own gender identity. Here we are. Oh, that's so great. Hold for processing. We're almost there. Oh, there we are. We don't even need to hold for processing. We can just get it on.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition? No.
Yeah.
I can't.
You can't?
Not in
Okay.
this context.
So you
I'm not a
believe the meaning
biologist.
of
How about that? And we were told that the fake president nominated this woman to the Supreme Court and that the fake and illegitimate Senate confirmed that nomination and that Ketanji Brown Jackson is now a Supreme Court justice. And for whatever reason, we're seeing that whole scenario play out. It's probably because it's very real and impossible to unwind. And we'll probably just have her there forever and still maintain our, our commitment to the institution of the Supreme Court. All that's definitely going to happen, thus making her real forever and making me wrong. So I guess we'll find out. Yeah, this is hilarious. And maybe she's just being used to override all of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's so-called accomplishments. Amazing. Oh, by the way, when we talked about Mitch McConnell earlier in the week, I didn't realize while we were talking, I think it was yesterday, I didn't realize that was brought up in the chat as a result of Mitch falling yesterday and damaging himself once again. So is Mitch McConnell being Ruth Bader Ginsburg and they're just wheeling him out, Dianne Feinstein, Queen Elizabeth, as it were? Maybe. I don't know. Is Mitch dead or does he just glitch a lot? Have you tried blowing on it? Okay, so Ketanji Brown Jackson, she added, oh, wait, hold on. Is there really a quote from her? Nah. In her review, former Entertainment Weekly critic Leah Greenblatt described And Juliet as a, quote, busy, exuberant jukebox musical and praised its cast, performances, and clever story beats. She added, there's something a little relentless about And Juliet's dogged eagerness to entertain, but nakedly joyful too. A star-crossed night of violent delights flipped for the TikTok era. Good Lord. There's something a little relentless about the show's dogged eagerness to entertain. That's basically saying this thing is desperate to get you to like it and has no substance whatsoever, but it's also nakedly joyful for the TikTok generation. Nakedly joyful. Sounds like Kamala Harris's campaign, her joy-based campaign. And I didn't even mean to do this so well, but I did it. So boom, segue. And here we go into Kamala, a Kamala sighting, the second in a week. The first being when they appeared together at the Kennedy Center. I don't think we talked about this. Oh, please. No, I really, really want this. I want my first search terms in Telegram to immediately lead me to the right place. That is something that I pride myself on, generally speaking. Like, immediately find the thing I need. That's what I want. Can't do it. So anyhow, there was footage from the Kennedy Center of Joe Biden and Jill Biden entering their box, and the whole Kennedy Center was applauding them. And they basically made it so that they did not look at or acknowledge Kamala at all. Oh, here it is. Perfect. This worked out so well. Oh, it's so great. We're going to stop that screen for now. We're going to present this one over here. A tweet from End Wokeness. I really don't think we did this on Monday. If we did, I apologize. But so that is the fake first lady and the fake president receiving an ovation from the Kennedy Center audience. They're right next to Kamala and the second gentleman, Doug Emhoff. I think they are splitting up. There were rumors of that, and that's funny because, of course, they're both such scumbags. Everyone is applauding the fake president, Joe Biden. He has not acknowledged Kamala in any way, and I guess that's that. Joe Biden's face looks masky. I don't know what that is in there containing the former soul of Joe Biden, but it's something. So from Broadway to the Kennedy Center, from one Kamala sighting to another, boom, second segue, just weaving them back and forth. I'm doing the weave in honor of Donald Trump. This is Mercury News. Adam Schiff, sworn into U.S. Senate by Kamala Harris, reflects on big senatorial shoes to fill. Now, this is funny. I noticed this with the picture. Adam Schiff is ceremonially sworn in by Vice President Kamala with his wife, Eve Schiff, that would be this lady right here, in the old Senate chamber of the U.S. Capitol on December 9th, 2024, in Washington, D.C. Schiff was officially sworn in earlier by Kamala in the Senate chamber. So there is an old Senate chamber and there is the official Senate chamber. We'll come back to that in just a second. Well, maybe we don't have to. Kamala, the fake vice president, is swearing in. We have the picture of the unofficial swearing in. The unofficial swearing in from the old Senate chamber early. Now, they also swore Pete Ricketts of Nebraska in early as well. Ricketts was appointed like a year ago or so, maybe 2 years ago, to replace Little Ben Sass after he left his Nebraska Senate seat to become the president of the University of Florida, a state school. So, working with Ron DeSantis. At that point, Ricketts was appointed by the Nebraska governor and put into office. Then he ran in a special election last month and quote unquote won. And so now he is being sworn into the Senate early, along with Adam Schiff and that guy Kim from New Jersey. Kamala, the fake vice president, is handling the responsibilities in the old Senate chamber. Okay. So what's the difference between the old Senate chamber and the official Senate chamber? This is Perplexity AI. And again, take the answers with a grain of salt. This is an AI summarizing mostly fake news articles. Okay. Research this on your own. The AIs are a jumping off point. They are not the end all and be all of knowledge. The old Senate chamber and the official Senate chamber differ in several key aspects. The old Senate chamber was used from 1810 to 1859, while the current Senate chamber has been in use since January 4th, 1859. There's probably an interesting story in there as well, because that is that whole, hey, we're overthrowing your country period. Hey, your constitution, we're going to invert it. The old Senate chamber is located in the original north wing of the U.S. Capitol, while the current Senate chamber is in the north wing extension. The old Senate chamber is smaller, with space for 64 senators, while the current chamber accommodates all 100. The old Senate chamber is semicircular and 75 feet. This one's a little bigger. Old Senate chamber features ionic columns and a half dome designed by Benjamin Henry Latrobe, while the current chamber was designed by Thomas Utzik Walter. The old Senate chamber is now primarily used as a museum and for special occasions, while the current chamber is used for daily Senate proceedings. The old Senate chamber witnessed significant 19th century debates, including the Missouri Compromise and the Webster Clay Calhoun debates, while the current chamber has been the site of modern legislative history. So all of the post-Civil War legislation has been done in this new chamber. Swearing-in ceremonies are frequently reenacted in the old Senate chamber, though not as the official oath. After the actual swearing-in occurs in the current Senate chamber, newly elected senators often return to the old Senate chamber for a ceremonial photo opportunity. This dates back to the 1930s and became more regular in the 1970s and blah, blah, blah. Go ahead and research that more if you like. But I believe that is kind of a just strange wrinkle on the whole situation. If our government was not as obviously illegitimate as it is, then this wrinkle might not be interesting at all. It just might be, oh, there's this traditional thing that we do. It's kind of gives us something to do with this old room where things really took place, or they created a new room and do all their illegitimate dealing in that room. So weird. Fake vice president swearing in, doing a reenactment of a swearing in a chamber that is no longer used for a man who is clearly a traitor to the United States of America early after he won a fake election in a purely communist state in California. That's rather remarkable, I think. The levels and levels of fakery. Schiff held a Maimonides Mishneh Torah while taking the oath of office. According to his office, it is a monumental legal code and one of the most organized, comprehensive, and influential works of Jewish law. The edition used by Schiff Monday was printed in Italy in 1490. So right before Columbus sailed the ocean blue, and I guess this is just a fact of history, the point at which Jews were being driven from Italy. Isn't that how the story goes? That is an awfully interesting. Oh, I didn't have the screen up. That's an awfully interesting fact about Adam Schiff swearing in here, don't you think? That's fairly remarkable. Well. What about should we find out? Let's take a second and find out. I don't know if people like when we just do the research here live on the live stream. I hope this isn't annoying for the people listening on the audio. I'm conscious of that. You guys are more than welcome to give me feedback either way on that. You know, I'm trying to iron out the wrinkles, figure out what the best format is going forward. And if this is it, then I at least want it to be something that the people who are accustomed to listening to the podcast version without the live stream aspect can get on board with. Is there anything special about the Maimonides Mishneh Torah? People do things because there is significance to the things they are doing. Okay. Adam Schiff, apart from whatever he is as a person, apart from any crimes he's committed, maybe all of it is an act. At the very bottom, no matter what, Adam Schiff is a character. And if you are writing fiction, a character has to have their own motivations for their actions. It can't just be, this is what the plot needs to have happen now. It has to be natural to that character, or else you're writing poor characters and potentially ruining the suspension of disbelief for the audience. So he's got to do things that are within his character, and therefore there's going to be meaning in what he does. It would be an entirely different thing if he had a Holy Bible in his hands, would it not? He's talking about Jewish law from 1490, and he is swearing in on that. He's swearing to uphold the Constitution on religious law, Jewish religious law from 1490. Now, is swearing in on the Bible swearing in on biblical law? I don't know. Having your hand on the Bible? I don't know. I'd be interested in that conversation. The Mishnah Torah by Maimonides is indeed special and revolutionary in several ways. It covers the entire corpus of Jewish law, including areas that were not applicable in Maimonides' time. The work is structured into 14 books, subdivided into sections, chapters, and paragraphs, applying a systematic, almost geometrical approach to Jewish law. What does that mean? We'll get there in 1 second. I have a suspicion about what that means, but I'm not sure. Maimonides wrote it in updated Mishnaic Hebrew, intending it to be accessible to as many readers as possible, not just scholars. It uniquely incorporates philosophical concepts into Jewish law, beginning with an account of God's existence based on Aristotelian cosmology. It presents laws in absolute terms, making it an apodictic code rather than a commentary or opinion piece. The Mishnah Torah is considered one of the greatest Jewish works of the Middle Ages and arguably the most important during that period. It was the first attempt to systematize all commandments from the Talmud, showing that each law serves a rational purpose. So it is a support of Talmudic law. Adam Schiff is swearing in to Senate early after having won a fake election with a fake vice president on Talmudic law. With no judgment attached, that is what's happening. Where were we? It is regarded as one of the greatest creations in the Hebrew language, second only to the Bible and Mishnah. Revolutionary impact, it fundamentally changed how Torah was taught and studied worldwide, earning a permanent place in rabbinic literature. These features make the Mishnah Torah a unique and groundbreaking work in Jewish legal and philosophical tradition. And old Shifty Schiff is being sworn in to his illegitimate Senate office on this book. I don't know what to think about that. That does not immediately appeal to me as something good. That does not suggest to me that Adam Schiff's first priority would be the Constitution. And of course it's not, because Adam Schiff is a complete traitor to the Constitution and is concerned about supporting global communism and the global regime and the inversion of the Constitution that they have used to infiltrate and take over the United States of America for 160 years now, or truthfully, much, much longer. But that's how long for the inversion. And by they, I don't mean the Jews. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about globalism broadly. Certainly the global Zionist movement is doing plenty to infiltrate and take over the United States of America. AIPAC wins like 90% of the elections when it supports a candidate. And that's like 3/4 of the illegitimate Congress. So it's not like I'm making this up. It's not like it's up for dispute. People are like, okay, well, fine. It's anti-Semitic then. No, it's not. What does that even mean? People have their priorities, okay? Not everybody's priority is the United States of America and the U.S. Constitution, and it doesn't matter whether they swear oaths to it. He's got a higher law that he has his hand on. Okay, let's continue. I will definitely learn more about that in the future. Okay. Okay. Well, people are, at least in the chat on the live stream, people seem to be satisfied with the live digs. It's not something that I would prefer to be doing, but I guess it's all right if y'all are okay with it. All right. So while we are talking about these sorts of issues, man, I want to get to it's a bunch of stuff to get to today, but sometimes this stuff is just so interesting. And I think that we're seeing a lot of things uncovered about where exactly we're going back to. And I've begun to suggest recently, kind of more in private chats than I have on the shows, but it seems like we are going back. Well, maybe I've talked about it plenty on the shows, and I talked about it at Guard a little bit too, although not as specifically. I think we are going back to the Articles of Confederation, and I think that the Articles of Confederation are so interesting. Someone brought it to my attention yesterday on Truth Social, and I am not remembering who right off the bat, and I feel bad for not shouting the person out. Maybe I'll just see if I can find it real quick, because I like giving people credit for, these ideas and leading me down these paths. Mrs. Lloyd on Truth Social. I don't know if that's, and a non-name or whatever it is, but thank you for catching this. We were talking about Donald Trump and the potential that, and kind of jokes about annexing Canada. And she mentioned that's actually in the Articles of Confederation. And so check this out. The Articles of Confederation mentions Canada in Article 11. This article states that Canada can join the Confederation and be admitted into the United States with all the advantages of the Union. Specifically, it says, Canada acceding to this Confederation and joining in the measures of the United States shall be admitted into and entitled to all of the advantages of this Union. This provision was unique to Canada, as the article also specifies that no other colony could be admitted without the agreement of 9 states. It's important to note that in this context, Canada referred to the British province of Quebec, not the modern country of Canada as we know it today. This offer was an attempt to expand the United States and reduce British influence in North America, but Canada did not take up this offer and remained a British colony. And so, with how thoroughly we are lied to about our history when it comes to all of these important issues, I just asked the AI, is there any reason to believe that Canada did become a state at any point, even if it was reversed? And it said no. We can skip over that. And so I kept going down that line just to see if there was anything there. Oh, and then I asked this. Is there an argument to be made that the Articles of Confederation are actually the law of the land? And it said, no, of course, there's no valid argument for this. And it brings up that the new Constitution exists. It doesn't say why at all. I said, what gave the 9 states the authority to overthrow the Articles of Confederation? The 9 states did not have the authority to overthrow the Articles of Confederation. In fact, the Articles of Confederation required unanimous consent from all 13 states for any amendments or changes. This requirement made it extremely difficult to modify or replace the articles. The process of replacing the Articles of Confederation with the Constitution was not a straightforward overthrow, but rather a complex series of events. In 1786, delegates from the 5 states met at the Annapolis Convention to discuss revising the Articles. The Confederation Congress endorsed a larger convention in Philadelphia in 1787, specifically for the sole and express purpose of revising the Articles of Confederation. The Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia exceeded its mandate by drafting an entirely new constitution instead of merely revising the Articles. The new constitution was then submitted to the states for ratification, with the requirement that only 9 out of 13 states needed to ratify it for it to take effect. The Constitution was ratified in 1788 and officially replaced the Articles of Confederation in 1789. It's important to note that this process was not strictly legal under the terms of the Articles of Confederation. which required unanimous consent for changes. The framers of the Constitution essentially bypassed the amendment process outlined in the articles, creating a new system of government that was ratified through a different process. This action was justified by the perceived need for a stronger central government and the widespread recognition of the articles' inadequacies. And the articles' inadequacies were that they didn't provide for a strong federal government. Bit of a circular logic there. It is very hard. Polymathanon says it is commonly held to be true that Canada became independent because of the War of 1812, fought mostly inside Canada. And Polymath, thank you for that. I think that the War of 1812 is going to be incredibly relevant in the future, and I have that as one of the areas of focus soon. Maybe I'll have like a reading spree during the holiday weeks or something. But the original 13th Amendment that would have barred titles of nobility, and it would have barred lawyers and doctors, etc., who have quote unquote titles of nobility from serving in the Congress. That would have been that would have created an entirely different reality. And I believe that ultimately that is why the War of 1812 was fought. I certainly don't know that, and I'm no expert on it. But damn, that is interesting. It really, really is interesting. And in terms of the Articles of Confederation, it's rather incredible to me that we have this governing document that says to make any amendment, you need all 13 states. So they were like, okay, well, let's get everybody together so we can at least discuss some amendments, because what we want is a larger, more centralized federal government. And rather than doing that, once they got everybody together, they're like, you know what? We're just going to write a new thing. And we're not going to get 13 states to ratify. We're just going to get 9. That's nuts to me. That's nuts. It's so weird learning so much of this history over again. Let's just do one more thing on Canada, and then we'll jump into some of the things I actually wanted to talk about today. Well, I mean, I want to talk about all of it because it's also interesting. In fact, I find this stuff more interesting than the news by like leaps and bounds. The news is utterly retarded. Canada and the Articles of Confederation. This is an article in the American Historical Review published by Oxford University Press, October 1952. This is just something I saw on JSTOR when doing a search. And obviously there's one page here. I have not read this entire thing, but this was so interesting that I wanted to share it. And maybe someone wants to research out there. And if you do, tell me what you found. To the student of Canadian-American relations, an interesting problem is posed by the unexplained presence in the Articles of Confederation of a special provision for the adherence and admission of Canada, especially so because of the absence of a similar provision in the Constitution. How about that? What prompted the framers of the Articles of Confederation to seek the annexation of Canada? In this writer's opinion, it was fear that the revolutionary cause would be imperiled if Canada were permitted to return to its former French role as a base of anti-American military and Indian operations. What? To substantiate this thesis, it will be necessary to begin our investigation with the Quebec Act of 1774 and to continue them through the debates which led to the adoption of the Constitution in 1788. Whatever be the real intentions of its authors, the passage of the Quebec Act on June 22nd, 1774, in the company of the 4 intolerable acts, instantly revived the American fear of Canada, which had lain dormant since the expulsion of the French in 1763. On September 17th, the First Continental Congress, after being in session less than 2 weeks, registered its sharp disapproval of the Quebec Act by accepting the Suffolk Resolves, which bitterly condemned the establishment of the Roman Catholic religion and the French laws in Canada as dangerous in an extreme degree to the Protestant religion and to the civil rights and liberties of all America. So they didn't want the French, they didn't want the Catholic Church. And this would have been, 1763. When did Napoleon end the banning of Christianity? That's probably not the right. That's not the right way to say it. Well, maybe it is. Napoleon ended the banning of Christianity in France through the Concordat of 1801. The end of the de-Christianization period that had lasted from 1792 until 1801. Okay. So interesting. Interesting. The French and the Catholics. All right, so we're gonna leave this alone, but what an interesting subject that I know virtually nothing about. So please don't think of me as any expert in any way. Maybe this is not as mind-blowing as it seems to me, but this seems like one of those periods of history that is just forgotten about. And it is very strange that, and I say this, as what's remnants of my public school education and my elite liberal arts college education. I don't recall any of this being mainstream American history in the least. There was 1492 Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Then there was the Pilgrims at Plymouth Rock who invented Thanksgiving. And then there was the revolution that led to the Constitution. But the revolution did not lead to the Constitution. The desire by the regime to create a larger centralized government and to make it dependent on regime banking led to the Constitution. Very, very interesting stuff. Let's do one more kind of silly thing, or kind of, off subject, generally speaking, thing. And that is the Donald Trump, we are told, is going to be named Times Person of the Year. He also won in 2016. It wasn't supposed to be announced till tomorrow, but it leaked. A short list, by the way, was announced on Monday on NBC's The Today Show and included Trump, Kamala, Kate Middleton, whose big year just consisted of her disappearing and, getting cancer. Who cares? I mean, I hope, to the extent that she has cancer, that she will recover, and I wish her good health. Okay, I have no ill will toward Kate Middleton. But who cares is the point. Elon Musk, Benjamin Netanyahu. There were others. Claudia Sheinbaum was one of them, which is insane. She became Mexican president. The protege of the president became president. And that makes her person of the year. Oh, right. It's because she's the first female president of Mexico. Wait. Oh, because she's the first female Jewish president of Mexico. By the way, got nothing against Claudia Sheinbaum. I did a long episode on that. Maybe 2 episodes. After she was elected. I have no anti-Claudia Sheinbaum sentiment in my heart and soul whatsoever. I'm not the one, by the way, who cares that she's the first Jewish anything. I could not possibly care less about that. It was an episode called Meet the Neighbors from June 4th of this year, 2024. Meet the Neighbors. So that is the Claudia Sheinbaum episode. And you can hear my thoughts on Claudia Sheinbaum and her election. I think it's very interesting. Everybody believes that, there were all these killings that allowed her to become president. She is either on board with the program or she seems to be under full control. So to be upset about the things that Claudia Sheinbaum is doing seems pointless. I mean, pay attention to her, of course. You know, she's married to a banker. And I'm not saying there's not adequate reason to be skeptical of these people, but this is one of those things where, you know, people take the opposite side from Nicolas Maduro because Elon Musk tweets and because we're told he's a brutal communist dictator. All right. That's not the relevant part of the story. And the fact that Claudia Sheinbaum is a leftist or an environmentalist is not the relevant part of the story. Okay. I don't care about what her politics are. I care about whether or not she is representative of a movement away from the global regime banks or toward it. I care about whether or not she is under control and attempting to subvert or inhibit the emergence of the multipolar order, or if she is spurring it on forward. All right. I want to know whether or not she's helping to bring down the regime bankers and the fiat currency. And I'm not concerned with whether or not she believes in climate change. Okay. So let us then get to this article from Politico. And just to be clear, Trump becoming Times Person of the Year doesn't matter at all. People are just so hero worshipy. And I love Donald Trump. Don't get me wrong. But we care that he's Times Person of the Year. Why? Here's someone who is Times Person of the Year. And here, by the way, is why they're making a big deal about Donald Trump being Times Person of the Year. Ha! And look at this. How about this? The articles are already out. Look here. Isn't this amazing? It's almost like they're doing the whole thing just for this. Donald Trump was just named Times Person of the Year. Hitler once held that title too. Oh, that was in 2016. Yeah, we're going to get it again. Donald Trump is Hitler. All of us are Nazis. That's what we are going to be told. We have been, that storyline has been previewed now for years. Donald Trump was always going to win the fake election of 2024. There was never any point at which he was not going to win that. It was their plan as well, based on the fact that he was unavoidably there. Otherwise, I think Ron DeSantis would have been playing that role. You know, his storyline would have gone along. He would have been congressman throughout COVID, anti-COVID, bringing the Marjorie Taylor Greene impeachments against Joe Biden. He would have run for governor against the disgraced current governor, Andrew Gillum, who went overboard on Florida COVID measures and then had a scandal, meth-fueled rendezvous with a gay escort in a hotel room. Would have brought his campaign down. Ron would have won. Ron would have swept into office in Florida in 2023 with his Republican supermajority, and Florida now the new Republican center of the United States of America. Ron would be America's governor for 1 year, and then he would be running for president. Maybe not even a year, few months. He announced in May of 2023. And he would have won the fake primaries, would have won the fake election, moving Joe Biden out as the fall guy. All of it could have just happened the exact same way, minus Donald Trump and the media influence. Because, of course, without Donald Trump, all the new media, all the alternative media, without Donald Trump, would have been backing Ron DeSantis too. Because everybody is going to normie themselves into oblivion, including the people who think that they are extremely awake. Gosh, man. Polymathanon says literal gay porn, Ron. Ron only had pocket porn. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Ron took gay porn onto the quote unquote debate stage with Gavin Newsom. What a clown show that was. Debating Gavin Newsom for absolutely no reason. It is amazing. Gavin Newsom probably would have been put up as the replacement for Joe Biden. But you can't burn Gavin on an election against Donald Trump because Trump will destroy Gavin. Or Gavin's totally under control. The whole thing could be totally under control. I get that. And then if it's totally under control, don't you have to ask yourself, man, is it okay that all of public life is totally under control? And you'd be like, well, yeah, I mean, it is at least because it's Donald Trump and, the Q operation that's controlling everything. Oh, maybe. Who gave them the right to control everything? I'm just asking. No one ever has an answer for that. It's like, it doesn't matter because it's good. Yeah, okay. I mean, yes, if you want to live in a world that is dominated by only lies forever. I mean, I'm actually interested in someone making the good version of the argument that these are the only options. It can only be all lies forever, one side or the other. And I think that this is ultimately, and people are going to be like, okay, well, that's conspiracy theory. Maybe. I think that this is ultimately a divide among Freemasons. And that on one side, they're like, everything's going to be under control and we're going to use it all for this awful, evil reason. And on the other side, they're like, everything is under control and we're going to use it to battle against those evil ones. Well, it's possible that they're both evil. Seems like that's what's happening, though. And, I guess you have to make of that what you will. Is it possible that there's a good twin version of a secret society that is at least minimally accepting of paganism, or so it would seem, and potentially Satanism? I don't know. I have a Freemason in my Telegram chat who's very well informed and very convicted in his beliefs and willing to share them. And I mean, it's not. I don't know. I don't explore the ideas thinking I'm going to pursue that mode in life, but it's pretty damn interesting to at least hear the case made. You don't have to, it's information among other information. It's better to know, I think, exactly what it is we're dealing with and what people are talking about than it is to pretend we know and then just say all the common things that people think and assume that they're all true. So I don't know. It's interesting. I wonder, is it all just lies forever? Is it all just lies forever? And while we're there, gosh, man, I am accidentally segueing hard today, doing it at expert level of segue. I can't even believe I'm segueing this hard. Check this out. So speaking of Freemasons, Chuck Grassley rips Wray's failed leadership at FBI with 11 pages of examples in blistering no confidence letter. And guys, I didn't make Chuck Grassley a Freemason. He just happens to be one. Let's see if I can find it just quickly. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, Chuck Grassley is a Freemason. He is a 33rd degree Mason and a member of Black Hawk Lodge number 65, having joined on April 1st, 1960. So he's been a Freemason in the Black Hawk Lodge number 65 for 64 years, joining on April Fools of 1960. As a high-ranking Mason, Grassley is part of a long tradition of Freemasons in American politics and government. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't make him a Freemason. If it disappoints you to hear this about Charles Grassley, that is really none of my concern. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean you can't still trust him because the internet said so. So we're going to trust Grassley and we're going to trust Wray. And this article says, Grassley doubled down that he believes Chris Wray has failed his fundamental duties as FBI director in a blistering letter expressing he has no confidence in Wray's continued leadership over the agency. For the good of the country, it's time for you and your deputy to move on to the next chapter in your lives. I've spent my career fighting for transparency, and I've always called out those in government who have fought against it. For the public record, I must do so once again now. Grassley went on to say he must express my vote of confidence, no confidence in your continued leadership of the FBI. President-elect Trump has already announced his intention to nominate a candidate to replace you, and the Senate will carefully consider that choice. For my part, I've also seen enough and hope your respective successors will learn from these failures. Grassley, who sits on the Senate Judiciary Committee, continued. The longtime Republican senator's letter comes as Trump's pick to lead the FBI, Kash Patel, is headed to Capitol Hill on Monday to meet with lawmakers, including Grassley, and rally support for his confirmation. 11-page letter detailed specific examples of Wray's failures. Grassley pointed to the unprecedented raid of Trump's Mar-a-Lago home in Florida in August of 2022 regarding classified documents as an example of Wray's failures. The Republican senator noted the raid included about 30 armed agents who were authorized to use lethal force if needed in order to execute the search warrant. The agents even searched the former First Lady's clothing drawers, Grassley continued. So hook, line, and sinker on all of the Mar-a-Lago op as real and all of the ensuing Jack Smith indictment as real. And I guess we are supposed to trust Grassley that it is correct to do that in his castigation of one Christopher Wray. Christopher Wray actually did announce his resignation today. Here we are with that business.
A Fox News alert to start us off here, and really no surprise, but FBI Director Christopher Wray has announced that he is going to be ending his tenure as the FBI Director earlier than the end of his 10-year term, which, again, is not surprising, as Donald Trump has said he wants Kash Patel to head up the FBI in the new administration. David Spunt, live at the Justice Department with the breaking news for us. David?
Well, John, Christopher Wray, the FBI director, is making this announcement right now in an all-staff town hall with thousands of FBI employees across the country. He says now is his time to go. As you mentioned, he has a 10-year term. All FBI directors do. He was 7 years into his 10-year term, and realistically, he had two options. Wait to be fired by President-elect Donald Trump because Trump announced Kash Patel would take over, or bow out before. He has chosen to bow out before. Wray is a former Republican lawyer, former DOJ prosecutor here in Washington, D.C., hired by Trump in 2017 after Trump fired James Comey after the entire Russia investigation probe. And Wray pretty much stayed out of the headlines as much as he could, at least. But in 2022, former President Trump became increasingly angry when the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago during the classified documents investigation. Of course, that was ordered by Attorney General Merrick Garland, who oversees the Justice Department, not Christopher Wray. But nonetheless, Christopher Wray saw the future and saw that it is his time to go. So he will be stepping down as Kash Patel, the upcoming FBI director, if confirmed, is on Capitol Hill. So the director right now is making this announcement to an all-staff meeting. We're waiting to get some wording of some of his comments, but not a complete surprise. But this is how he is ending his career at the FBI. And I will notice, John and Sandra, that we don't have an exact end date yet, but we're told it will obviously be for the inauguration, probably sometime in January, but they are still working out those details. John.
All right. And then yet to be determined whether Kash Patel makes it through the confirmation process or not.
Okay, so the announcement from the fake news media, Grassley, I am told that my friends Joe and Abs on Eye of the Storm last night discussed Grassley and Wray. And so for that perspective, I would just recommend everyone check that out if you want to hear about that stuff. Donald Trump's comments on Wray, and you can take these for what they're worth. You know, Trump is always going to have an initial reaction, and then he will either stick with that or he'll switch it up once he has gotten the reaction to the reaction. Donald Trump says on Truth Social, in reaction to the resignation of Christopher Wray, the resignation of Christopher Wray is a great day for America, as it will end the weaponization of what has become known as the United States Department of Injustice. I don't know what happens to him. We will now restore the rule of law for all Americans. Under the leadership of Christopher Wray, the FBI illegally raided my home without cause, worked diligently on illegally impeaching and indicting me, and has done everything else to interfere with the success and future of America. They have used their vast powers to threaten and destroy many innocent Americans, some of which will never be able to recover from what has been done to them. Kash Patel is the most qualified nominee to lead the FBI in the agency's history and is committed to helping ensure that law, order, and justice will be brought back to our country again and soon. As everyone knows, I have great respect for the rank and file of the FBI, and they have great respect for me. They want to see these changes every bit as much as I do, but more importantly, the American people are demanding a strong but fair system of justice. We want our FBI back, and that will now happen. I look forward to Kash Patel's confirmation so that the process of making the FBI great again can begin. Thank you. All right, thank you. So we have some reaction there. Christopher Wray is out. What big news. We should not have a Department of Justice. We should not have a Federal Bureau of Investigation. It is ludicrous that we have a federal government police force that coordinates with and trains our local police forces within the states, and their federal funding is contingent on that coordination. So what we have in essence then is a large and sprawling federal government police force that controls the criminal law in all the land under this ridiculous system of law that we have layered on top of our constitutional law. You want to see an occupying foreign regime take over your country and invert it so that it can become part of the global communist order rather than the world's last bastion for freedom. This is how it happens. And this is not about not supporting the police. It's going to be funny that defunding the police becomes a conversation, not because they're woke and trying to kill black people, but because the federal funding for police forces is going to be eliminated, as it should be. Why is the federal government funding police forces? And that's not because I want the good and brave and courageous police officers that keep us safe to be defunded, but it's got to be funded within the states. Otherwise, it can't be independent. Like, sorry, that's the way the system's supposed to be. At some point, the practical concerns have to take a back seat to the principled concerns. And if it's too jarring to move from the practical concern and to emphasize the principled concern right away, the principled concern needs to be formalized and put in process. Okay? I'm open to stepwise processes to get to those points. I think that's reasonable and acceptable. You know, we have to deal in the reality as it exists. But we can't go on saying that the principled priorities need to take a back seat to the practical priorities. That doesn't work, because that argument is just going to last forever. And if you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. Okay? If you say that the principal concerns need to take a back seat and that we can check again in a couple of years, well, you're going to check again in a couple of years and you're going to find out, wait, the principal concerns still have to take a back seat. At some point, that cannot be the case, or we will, like I say, be stuck in this thing forever. So I don't want to see good police officers laid off and have to struggle financially with their family. But I also don't want to see the federal government funding and directing local police departments, especially with these city corporations that just continue to grow. The police departments are directed by the cities that have their own system of laws. It's bananas. It is bananas. Live in a blue city. Live in a blue city and see how many extra regulations there are about everything. It's absolutely nuts. I think that's one more thing for domestic stuff today. I think one more thing. Oh gosh, man, there's so much good stuff today. Or so much stuff that I think is either funny or relevant. It's not all good stuff. Some of it's just funny. Let's go to this one first. Trying to make sure I covered it. I didn't skip anything there. All right, let's go to this one first. It's amazing.
The real deal, Harris. You know, I'm also on the Transportation Committee, on the Aviation Subcommittee, and I've gotten to know people. And from very high sources, very qualified sources, very responsible sources, I'm going to tell you the real deal. Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones. That mothership is off, I'm going to tell you the deal. It's off the east coast of the United States of America. They've launched drones, is everything that we can see or hear. And again, these are from high sources. I don't say this lightly. Now, you know, we know there was a probability it could have been our own government. We know it's not our own government because they would have let us know. It could have been some really glorified hobbyist or hobbyists that were doing something unbelievable. They don't have the technology. But let's pretend that's possible. The third possibility was somebody, an adversarial country, doing this. Know that Iran made a deal with China to purchase drones, motherships, and technology in order to go forward. The sources I have are good. They can't reveal who they are because they are speaking to me in confidentiality. These drones should be shot down. Whether it was some crazy hobbyist that we can't imagine, or whether it is Iran, and I think it very possibly could be, they should be shot down. We are not getting the full deal, and the military is on alert with this.
Look, you've given us some pretty dire information just here, and I want to make sure that our viewers are digesting this. Iran has the capability to pull up along our eastern seaboard and launch drones the size of an SUV into the skies of several states, particularly New Jersey, where we know the incoming president has a large home, also in the same county or nearby where some of these drones in New Jersey have been seen. That capability exists. It's possible some of those drones are here. So I have two questions. How are they fueling them? They have to land somewhere. Drones don't fly forever. Why don't they close down the airspace? Yes, it's inconvenient. Yes, it's the holidays. Shut it down. But if you start shooting things and you don't know how they're fueled, that's going to be mass explosions. This isn't like one spy balloon. Congressman, this is serious.
I'm so happy that she mentioned the sky circles, because this is basically sky circles all over again. So that was Jeff Van Drew, Republican of New Jersey. And apparently there's some sort of drone problem. And now there is a mothership. Yep. Got a mothership out there. Here is Anthony Tata, or Tata. I think it's Tata, but hey, man, I don't know. I like him no matter what. I'm not trying to mess his name up in any funny way. He said, everybody just needs to read Besieged, which I wrote 7 years ago, about Iranian ships launching swarming attack drones along the eastern seaboard of the U.S. The real question is, who is our Jake Mahegan? And I guess that's the character name. He has the cover of his book right there. He writes novels about a military character. And it seems that the plot of his novel has been turned into a real life news story. And people are like, well, that doesn't make any sense. This thing is really happening. And his novel was fiction. So this thing that's really happening can't be based on the fiction. That's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy unless the AI is writing the mainstream news stories. And people are just reacting to those news stories and through hyperstition, making them real. Is that what's happening? Oh, gosh, you can never know. Maybe Anthony Tata just predicted this amazing event. But don't worry, the event's not happening, says this guy from the Kamala administration. This is some spokesperson for the Ministry of Defense. I mean, the Defense Department, Deputy Defense Press Secretary Sabrina Singh.
Jen. Sabrina, can you tell me what the Pentagon is doing to address this issue of drone sightings over New Jersey? It's near sensitive installations. The FBI is involved. What is the Pentagon doing?
Sure. So at this time, aware of those drone sightings that have been reported, at this time we have no evidence that these activities are coming from a foreign entity or the work of an adversary. We're going to continue to monitor what is happening, but at no point were our installations threatened when this activity was occurring.
Can you rule out that these are American drones or U.S. military drones?
These are not U.S. military drones. Again, this is being investigated by local law enforcement. What our initial assessment here is that these are not drones or activities coming from a foreign entity or adversary.
Representative Jeff Van Drew, who is a Republican from New Jersey, was just on the air saying that Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones, and that mothership is off the coast of the east coast of the United States. Is there any truth to that?
There is not any truth to that. There is no Iranian ship off the coast of the United States, and there's no so-called mothership launching drones towards the United States.
Of course, how would any of these people know? These Biden spokespeople, have they known what's going on in a military sense at any point over the last 4 years? My answer would be an emphatic no. Anthony Blinken, by the way, was in a congressional hearing today to be questioned about the events in Afghanistan in 2021. I have not watched the hearing, but I cannot imagine that he was asked about why the American people were shown footage by the mainstream media of a fake C-17 going down the runway with Afghans clinging to the landing gear as it took off, the effeminate Afghan boy waving his hands as he ran alongside the fake plane, and then it flies off into the sky with people falling from losing their grip on the landing gear and falling thousands of feet to their ultimate demise on the last plane out of Kabul. That absolutely was not the last plane out of Kabul. Why aren't our Congress members asking about that? If they did, and I haven't seen it, somebody by all means, please tell me, watch the hearing. If that was a question asked in the hearing, well, I would watch the entire thing. That's how worth it would be if someone began asking questions like that. But alas, there is no way that happened. I want to ask the machine whether Jeff Van Drew receives money from AIPAC. And the answer is yes, Van Drew has received money from AIPAC and pro-Israel groups. According to the AIPAC tracker, Jeff Van Drew has collected over $111,000 from AIPAC and the Israel lobby. So does that have anything to do with him providing a justification for potentially war in the future with Iran? Got to say it just might. I don't know, is that anti-Semitic? To suggest that the country who formally, or not the country, the lobbying group that formally lobbies on behalf of Zionism officially in the United States and appoints members to our illegitimate Congress on its behalf. Does the guy who takes money from them claim that there is an Iranian mothership launching drones off the East Coast to start a war with the country that the Israel lobby wants to start a war with? Gosh, I don't know. It's probably anti-Semitic to even consider it. I have to handle something. I will be right back in 1 minute. Please, by all means, watch this amazing clip from the film, The Parallax View.
Now, this is an announcement, not a press conference. Therefore, there will be no questions. A complete transcript of the investigation is being prepared for publication on March 1st. At that time, the committee will hold a full-scale press conference. After nearly 4 months of investigation, followed by 9 weeks of hearings, it is the conclusion of this committee that Senator Carroll was assassinated by Thomas Richard Linder. It is our further conclusion that he acted entirely alone, motivated by a misguided sense of patriotism and a psychotic desire for public recognition. The committee wishes to emphasize that there is no evidence of any wider conspiracy. No evidence whatsoever. Now, it's our hope that this will put an end to the kind of irresponsible and exploitive speculation conducted by the press in recent months. As I've said, the complete text of the hearings, which provides the basis for the committee's findings, will be published March 1st. When you have had a chance to examine the evidence, you will have every opportunity to ask those questions which remain unanswered, if there are any. That is all. Thank you.
All right. So let's continue here with Politico. For Trump's allies, rhino hunting season is in full swing. Rhino hunting season has been in full swing since, what did we declare as rhino hunting season? I think it was 2022 or 2023. Definitely last year. But, you know, rhino season is always, rhino hunting is always in season as far as I'm concerned. Donald Trump's MAGA allies are racing to put down the last vestiges of Republican resistance to him in the Senate. And we are exposing the uniparty. That's the point. Exposing the uniparty. It's not resistance to Donald Trump. It's the existence of the uniparty. And as soon as the American public broadly understands the existence of the uniparty, we'll be in much better shape. And I think one of the important things to do is to stop talking about Democrats and Republicans. Man, I turned on Dan Bongino for just a second today. And within a minute and a half that I watched the show before turning it off, he talked about how dangerous he is to the mainstream, how we are the news now, meaning himself and the rest of the info op. And gosh, man, never mind. Let's continue. Donald Trump's MAGA allies are racing to put down the last vestiges of the Republican resistance following her initial hesitance toward Pete Hegseth. Trump's embattled defense secretary pick, Joni Ernst, came in for a raft of criticism from Republicans in her home state of Iowa. Bill Cassidy, one of 4 remaining senators who voted to convict Trump in his 2021 impeachment trial, just drew a formal primary challenge. And moderate Senators Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski are already starting to catch some heat from party activists. Among Trump's MAGA faithful, the hunt for what they derisively describe as rhinos is in full swing. The pressure valve is now pointed in that direction, in the direction of the Senate, said Steve Deace, an Iowa-based radio talk show host who is considering challenging Ernst. The Tea Party was not nearly as organized as the Trump movement is. How about that? One of the biggest DeSantis simps a MAGA hater. Guy hates Trump supporters, hates Donald Trump. And he's going to be the guy to challenge Joni Ernst trying to attack her from the right. That is unbelievable. So here we go. Steve Deace is he's basically being painted as a Trump supporter here. Okay. The Tea Party was not nearly as organized as the Trump movement is. Are you part of the Trump movement, Steve Deace? No, you're the rhino. You can't be taking out a rhino. That's crazy, man. That is crazy. And here we go again. MAGA activist Charlie Kirk issued a warning to Senator Mike Rounds of South Dakota for simply saying he had no complaints against the current FBI director that Trump wants to oust. Billionaire Elon Musk piled on, writing that those who oppose reform will lose their primary and election. And Senator Tommy Tuberville openly suggested that colleagues opposing Trump may not belong in the Senate. Now, that's just fine. Tuberville's exactly right. And Elon, I can take it or leave it. Charlie Kirk, same thing with the comments, but look who they're highlighting. Wow. All right, so I don't think there was anything that I wanted to continue with here. Let's just jump down to the end. Of the 10 House Republicans who voted to impeach Trump, only 2 remain in office. 4 retired and 4 lost primaries to Trump-backed challengers, including a high-profile win against then-Rep. Liz Cheney in Wyoming. Now, as Trump's allies zero in on the Senate this year, they have a blueprint to follow from his House impeachment revenge tour. Anoint a candidate early and nudge the other ones out to avoid splitting the anti-incumbent vote. Interesting. Some early challenger names have cropped up in key states. Texas AG Ken Paxton has suggested he could run against Cornyn. When asked about Paxton considering a challenge, Cornyn responded on Tuesday, who? Cornyn, by the way, also, might as well bring this up while his name has been mentioned. These people really are awful. This is Derek Evans on Twitter quoting Cornyn. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt here, obviously. If somehow he is improperly or falsely quoting Cornyn, then I suppose that is immediately becoming my problem. But he says, Texas GOP Senator John Cornyn might not vote for RFK Jr. for HHS, saying, I realize COVID got to be pretty controversial, but vaccinations are an important part of our public health, starting with the requirement that kids get vaccinations before they go to school. That's really something, is it not? Not only supporting vaccines in general, but the childhood vaccination schedule. One would think that we would be past that sort of thing. And Donald Trump has already said that any schools and universities that have mask or vaccine mandates in place will lose their federal funding. So, maybe he's countering an op in this manner. I guess you can be open to that. Do we need RFK Jr. to get rid of the childhood vaccination schedule if Trump has already promised to remove the funding? No, we don't. Just like we don't need DOJ to get rid of government agencies that are already being taken down based on their unconstitutionality, particularly if they just go and privatize. What will the situation be if we are shown a television show about getting rid of these agencies, but they were already gotten rid of due to their unconstitutionality, and they just privatize and continue doing the same work in league with the same people, and Elon and Vivek tell us that everything's been solved? What will have happened in that case? We will have just been lied to, and the regime will have maintained some control while we accepted our Elon/Vivek groveling as a justification for why it's all okay. Now, I mean, I'm a fan of Elon Musk. I'm not a fan of Vivek. Why do I need to be? What has he done to make me a fan? He's participating in an info op and absolutely nothing else. You know, and Trump saying nice things about him doesn't do it for me. That's fine. I think Donald Trump's great. I give him the benefit of the doubt. Him saying that someone is good doesn't mean anything. Okay? He said lots of bad people are good. And he then later says that they're bad. You got to let Trump be Trump. You don't have to go along with everything he says. I will form my own opinions of these people based on whatever objective standards I am able to adhere to with whatever information I am able to discern. They don't need my help. And if they want my help, they can just ask me and I'll be happy to help. But I'm certainly not making them fail in their cause by being more skeptical of them than the average Twitter normie. Let us continue on with our talk of rhinos. I just want to close this out because you might remember that Steve Deace throughout the Ron op, I believe is just the worst. This guy is a raging asshole when it comes to Donald Trump and MAGA. And he joined in with Chip Roy. Maybe it's worth revisiting this just because there's probably some people out there who weren't around during the Ron op and are probably like, why do you hate these people? Well, first off, I don't hate them. They just happen to be enemies, and I will treat them as enemies until they are apparently something other than that. Chip Roy and Steve Deace. Why aren't these clips coming up? This is amazing. You can search Chip Roy, Steve Deace on YouTube and not find Chip Roy and Steve Deace. I'm just getting Chip Roy videos. This is bananas. Consider what the algorithm has to be programmed to do to totally avoid giving me Chip Roy, Steve Deace videos. Incredible. Let me try on Rumble. Maybe I'll have to go to BitChute or something else. This is crazy. Chip Roy, Steve Deace. Steve Deace video here. DeSantis, the actual threat to the system. Gosh, these people are just awful. Dan Bongino show with Matt Walsh, Chip Roy, and Steve Deace. I really don't know why I can't find this clip of the two of them. I think that they might have been on. Man, if anybody in the chat, if Starborn's in there and has X, and you can find that clip of Deace and Chip Roy, I would love to see that. Gosh, this is very frustrating. How unfortunate. It shouldn't be that hard to find this. Hold for processing for just a second more. Ah, yes, here we go. Here we go. Now we're in the business. The National Pulse coming through for me. And that's interesting because Chip Roy goes on War Room fairly regularly. And everybody knows that I love Steve Bannon. I don't know why he is continually invited on there. Chip Roy and Thomas Massey both supported the Ron DeSantis op. A lot of strange stuff. A lot of strange stuff. Check it out.
Honestly, I'm losing interest just collectively. And I'm about to just get thee to a nunnery and just, go full on Billy Graham. And you all figure, I don't care. I am reaching the point. I'm paid to care. I don't care. It's getting harder to make me care. This is a joke. It's rudderless, and it seems as if we want to sell each other talking points that actually produce any form of substantive victory whatsoever. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, I mean, you talked about a circle of your description, pleasure. I know what you're doing there. I would also argue that, some of our brothers and sisters, particularly in the, MAGA camp, I think, particularly enjoy the circular firing squad. You want to come at me and call me a rhino, you can kiss my ass. Look, I've spent a lifetime fighting for limited government conservatism. I have laid it all on the line. I've not seen my family but for 2 days in the last 30 days. You go around talking your big game and you thumping your chest on Twitter. Yeah, come to my office and come have a debate, mother. You know why? Because I'm standing up for this country every single day. And Steve, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to go to a nunnery because there were people who were buried over in Normandy who deserve us to stand up for what they fought for. So that's what I'm going to do. And all of you out there who are out there saying what you're saying out on social media, you stick it. I'm going to go down to the floor and do my job, and I'm going to stand up for the people who fought for this country. And I'm going to do it the way I think is right for the people that I represent. That's what I think.
Very bold. Very, very bold. Chip Roy. Ain't he great? And of course, Steve Deace is the garbage pail. What do they call him? Garbage pail kids? Yeah, that's what he looks like. Softball shaped, garbage pail looking Ron DeSantis cuckold. So he's going to run for Senate against Joni Ernst. Well, that's very interesting. Are we just watching an anti-Ernst op right now? Did Joni Ernst endorse Rig de Meatball? No, it was Kim, what's her name? The governor of Kim Reynolds. That's what it was. So Kim Reynolds, the governor of Iowa, endorsed Rick DeSantis, and Steve Deace was obsessed with old Bootsy. And now Steve Deace wants to run for Senate against Joni Ernst. Interesting. Of threats of political retribution, he said, this has gotten a little out of hand. The senators have a responsibility, this being Cornyn, by the way, under the Constitution to do advice and consent. And really, it's not just to protect the Senate's prerogatives. It's to protect the president against surprises that don't come up during the vetting process. Pass. But that line of thinking isn't slowing the MAGA army down. In Iowa, Deace said he's received numerous calls about his possible challenge to Ernst, but declined to specify if any of those calls were from people in Trump's orbit. He said he would support the candidate Trump chooses if he decides to back an Ernst challenger. There's very few Iowans that have the name ID to do this, he said. I'm one of them. No one cared in Iowa about his endorsement of Ron DeSantis. And Steve Deace used to champion some Iowa pastor that also endorsed Rig de Meatball, and no one cared about that either because he was a normie evangelical pastor in Iowa, a megachurch pastor who just teaches the Schofield Bible to his congregation. And I don't know how much of a future these guys are ultimately going to have when these things crash down, and to the extent that people out there go to these mega churches and like these mega church pastors and they form community there, and I appreciate all that. I'm really not trying to insult you or the place where you go to worship or anything like that. But man, oh man, these guys have some political commitments that people should be worried about. There's a reason why the uniparty right and the Christian Zionist right is so strong with people who really want to support America. And they all are just led into supporting Israel first in order to be America first. And that is absolutely crazy. I don't know why we would want to continue empowering these sorts of people. So while we're on the topic of rhino hunters, I want to go to this from Ben Shapiro. And, you know, it's so funny. Every episode this week will contain an example of me being ready to lead us into a discussion about Syria that never happens. Tomorrow, we'll talk about Syria tomorrow. It's only a day away. Ben Shapiro, here we are. Let's hear what Ben Shapiro has to say about the value of the Christian Zionists in his audience, because you would have to think they must be Christian Zionists on some level to continue listening to Ben Shapiro. Aside from the quote unquote alt-right of many years ago, I don't think there is anybody in the space who has gone harder on the Daily Weimar than I have. People love Ben Shapiro. They think he is an ally of our side. People love Matt Walsh. They think Matt Walsh has cured the United States of its tranny problem. These people are literally the controlled opposition to the woke left. They are the woke right. Okay. They are anti-woke in the same way that anti-racists, in the same way that the anti-racists are anti-racist, which is to say they're not at all. They are just the other side. Anti-racism and racism are both racism. They are a controlled opposition dynamic that keeps the racist agenda and all of the racist narratives and race narratives alive and relevant. And just the same, the anti-wokes keep the wokeness narratives alive and relevant. They are not destroying this stuff. They are propping it up. Okay. The Daily Weimar is an explicitly globalist Zionist organization, just as the wokes are. What is the ultimate priority? It's not the gender agenda on either side. The bigger priority is globalism and Zionism. It's true for the anti-wokes as much as it's true for the wokes. So, you know, they are the biggest producers in the world of trans content. And let's check in with the ultimate priority, because here it is. Ben Shapiro explains it in absolutely no uncertain terms.
Okay, there were significant human rights predations against Christians on the ground, not only in the areas controlled by Sunni terrorists, but also in the areas that were controlled by Shia terrorists. Syria is about 10% Christian. Okay, so is it about to get worse? It definitely could, which would, of course, be a terrible thing. And then you have the question of what Bashar al-Assad was doing to the country, which is killing hundreds of thousands of people using everything up to and including chemical weapons. Well, he's gone now, and Israel has been striking a lot of the chemical weapons depots to prevent them from falling into the hands of the new rebel alliance over here. Okay, so, again, is any of this wonderful? It isn't. But the one thing that is an upside is that the Iranian crescent is dead. Okay, the Shia crescent that, again, stretched all the way from Iran all the way across to Lebanon, that is now dead. What does that mean? It means the Iranian regime is actually in quite real trouble here. All of their biggest proxies are gone. Hamas, gone. Hezbollah, gone. Assad, gone. That means the Shia influence game is beginning to wane. It's beginning to end. The Houthis are basically isolated down there in Yemen. The Shia regime in Iran still has impact in Iraq, but internally they are much, much, much weaker right now. So the border countries, what are they doing? Turkey is doing incursions into northern Syria. They were probably behind much of what's going on right now. They're attempting to grab territory in northern Syria. They're creating their own buffer zone. They're attempting to encroach on Kurdish territory, again, in the northeast of the country. Meanwhile, Israel in the south has the Golan Heights. And anybody, by the way, who thought that it was a good idea for Israel to give up the Golan Heights, yeah, you're an idiot. Okay, it's a good thing Israel has the Golan Heights. Otherwise, you'd have Sunni terrorists sitting up top over the Lake Tiberias and firing down into the valley in Israel. Okay, so Israel controls that area. They've been moving up into their own buffer zone over at Mount Hermon, which is in Syria. It's kind of the strategic height of the region. And meanwhile, again, you have the Syrian government, which has now abdicated. They're turning over control to this rebel alliance. Unclear exactly what's going to result, because again, you still have all of these players on the ground who are fighting one another. They may be united against Assad, but now Assad is gone. So Assad's family is out. The rebels, again, arrived in Damascus. Meanwhile, you have the Kurds who are still controlling a large swath of territory. What does it really mean? It means that Russia is weak. Iran is weak. These were paper tigers. And their attempts to invade Ukraine and invade Israel, respectively, those went really poorly for them. What you are watching is the complete collapse of the Russian-Iranian alliance in Syria, and it is indicative of the interior weakness of these countries, which is something to remember going forward. President Biden said this is the first time ever either Russia nor Iran or Hezbollah could defend a foreign regime in Syria. This is the direct result of the blows Ukraine and Israel delivered. This is what he said in a statement. So no thanks to Joe Biden, by the way, who's continuing to slow walk weapons to both Ukraine and also to Israel. So if it had been up to Joe Biden, presumably those allies never would have been properly armed. But it is a very good thing and indicative, again, of the weakness of Russia and Iran, what has happened in Syria. Now, net, I think it'll probably be a good thing, but there are no great things in the Middle East. It just doesn't exist. A lot of bad people in a lot of areas in the Middle East. Okay, there are significant human rights violations against Christians on the ground.
So that's pretty amazing, is it not? And I want to play, I'll just keep some of this going. One thing to watch is how Ben Shapiro just can't talk to the camera. He keeps just glancing off to the side and coming back to it. Very, very strange. Isn't that weird? Make of it what you will. So Ben Shapiro says that it's unfortunate that Christians will be persecuted and abused in whatever ways, but that it was necessary because of reasons. You know, you got to take out those terrorists. And sure, terrorists are the ones taking over in Damascus. But, you know, they renounced ISIS and they renounced ISIL and Al-Qaeda. So these are the good terrorists, not the bad terrorists. They were all terrorists. What Israel is striking, those are the chemical weapons depots so that they won't fall into the wrong hands, the hands of the terrorists. He doesn't know what's going to happen there, but he does know that it was worth it. And they need to be able to shoot down from Mount Hermon. And that's got its own interesting history and symbolic history. We'll see where that's going. We are all supposed to support this agenda. And oh yeah, Russia and Iran are paper tigers. They are so weak internally. Now, did Donald Trump say that? Yes. Did Donald Trump mean that? Could Donald Trump have possibly meant that? No. But Ben Shapiro could mean it because Ben Shapiro is a shill for the intelligence organizations. Donald Trump certainly does not believe and does not act as though he believes Russia has been weakened. He's also not retarded. Russia, Turkey, and Iran just had a meeting Saturday morning about what was going to happen in Syria, the 22nd meeting in their series of meetings. So they decided what's going to happen in Syria. Ben Shapiro is going with the whole mainstream story about these groups marching on Damascus, and Assad got scared and left. And now Israel's doing everything they have to do. They've eliminated all the terrorists in the region. And it might totally be possible, as I've said, that an element of Israel is eliminating actual intel-linked, regime-linked terror organizations over there. Okay, I'm not denying the possibility of that, but that's not the argument Ben Shapiro's making. He's arguing that Russia and Iran are paper tigers because he wants to go to war with Russia and Iran, as the military-industrial complex has wanted to go to war with Russia and Iran, and the pro-Ukraine people have wanted to go to war with Russia and Iran. This is the global Zionist agenda, to go to war with Russia and Iran. As best we can discern it, that is clear that that's what they've wanted and what they've always wanted. And if you were going to talk about preserving Ukraine, the homeland, and Israel, the adopted homeland, and creating the greater Israel, because they want all that land, and they say that that is what they are entitled to. That's what the history suggests they are entitled to, and that project is necessary for them. This is the goal of Zionism. Then they need war with Russia and Iran. And so that is what Ben Shapiro is shilling for. I don't know what we could possibly take from that otherwise. And it is strange that Ben Shapiro is still the star of the Daily Weimar. I mean, it has to be still strange, doesn't it? This is interesting. In Axios today, the Daily Weimar eyes growth investment in 2025. The Daily Weimar is looking to possibly partner with larger companies or raise a significant round of capital next year to meet its growth ambitions. Its co-CEO, Jeremy Boring, told Axios why it matters. The company's commercial success has caught the attention of investors and potential buyers looking to gain a foothold in the younger conservative culture. Semaphore reported Sunday that Fox Corp was eyeing potential acquisitions of conservative podcast companies, including the Daily Weimar. So Fox News might buy the Daily Weimar? Asked about a deal with Fox, Boring said that the company isn't actively looking for a buyer, but we're not closed off to an offer. It's easy to imagine a strategic partnership with Fox or someone like Fox that could be mutually beneficial. I think that we complement Fox and don't compete with Fox, he added, noting Daily Weimar's audience is primarily younger and more coastal urban. Okay, so the Daily Weimar is going to bring Fox News a younger audience, keep them right in that mainstream normie sphere. Isn't that incredible? Like, oh, it can't be Fox News. People are rejecting the mainstream media. Fox News has this older audience that it has to cater to. What we need to do is find a way to get this central narrative marketed to a younger audience. Let's prop up the Daily Weimar and talk about wee-wees and hoo-ha's for the next 6 years. Everybody's going to make $1 million a week to do it. We're going to support global Zionism. We're going to be anti-Trump unless it's necessary to maintain our conservative, quote unquote, credentials. We're going to talk about wee-wees and hoo-ha's the entire time. And then when it becomes advantageous, we are going to talk about the illegal immigration and try to pass the unipartisan compromise. And then we're going to support Project 2025. Remember a couple of weeks ago, Matt Walsh announced Project 2025 is actually the Trump agenda. He's like, is it time that we can admit that Project 2025 is actually the Donald Trump agenda? As though he was just too sly and Donald Trump was actually lying the entire time. There was actually a, gosh, I hope I can find this. On Sunday in the Kristen Welker Meet the Press interview, she asked about Project 2025. Son of a. I really want to find this now. Hold for processing. These are the things that I would have always just done on my own time while in the other format of the show, but now you have to sit here through it, and I apologize. Trump Projects 2025 Meet the Press. Let's see if we can find this on YouTube. This will work. This is too. Okay, maybe we'll just do the first part of this clip. So I'm going to put this on 125 as I often do. So if you're like, hey, that's too fast because you have me on 125, well, c'est la vie, I guess. Here is Donald Trump on Meet the Press.
Let's talk about Project 2025. This is the conservative policy blueprint. You disavowed it during the campaign. You called it a product of the radical right. You've said some of their ideas were abysmal.
I said some of it is. Some of it is very good. Some of it's very mainstream, actually. Frankly, the Democrats should have used some of it because they went, with all the transgender that they were doing or with the men playing in women's sports. Well, if they wouldn't have done that, maybe they would have done better.
Well, so you take me to my question. You're now giving people involved in Project 2025 prominent roles in your administration. Are you changing your mind about Project 2025? No. Is this now the policy blueprint for the second Trump administration?
Some people, if you take a look at the group, it was hundreds of people were involved. And I was actually, I reprimanded the whole group. I said, you shouldn't have placed this document in front of the voters because I have nothing to do with it and I'm the one that's running. You had no right to do this where you put 1,000-page document in front, and many of those things I disagree with. Now, many of those things I happen to agree with. Many of those things Democrats should have agreed to. And I think they would have done much better in the election because they got slaughtered.
Well, I guess people see the list: Russ Vought, Brendan Carr, Peter Navarro, John Ratcliffe, Pete Hoekstra, Monica Crowley. And they think these are all the people who were involved in or writing Project 2025. This must be a blueprint for work requirements, eliminating the Head Start program, criminalizing pornography. Is that what we can expect
to see? I don't know how they voted. I don't know. I never spoke to them actually about it. And I purposely, and I told you, normally it would be just the opposite. I'd review every page. I purposely didn't even want to see it. Because when somebody like you asks me a question about Project 2025, I can honestly say, I've never seen it. I have nothing to do with it. I didn't read it, but I did hear some things in there that I would totally disagree with. And I said to the people that were really the people behind it, you know who those people are? I said, you really had no right doing this to me because they used it as a soundbite, the Democrats. And I don't know, it couldn't have been too effective because they got slaughtered, but they did use it as a soundbite.
But to people who see, oh, he's bringing in all of these people from Project 2025, he must know what it is.
Well,
you know,
what? I don't know what it is. No, I don't know what it is.
You still don't know
but
what
I
it is?
heard
All
certain
these people
things that I didn't like. And by the way, I heard certain things that are phenomenal. Okay?
Like what?
Like law and order. We want law and order. Okay? Little thing like, let's put prisoners in jail. Let's not let people come out and raid every drugstore in Manhattan so that we have to put glass up and every store is going out of business.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about
Okay. Now, that is the most complete answer we've gotten on Project 2025 throughout this entire period. And I would suggest to you, in line with what I was saying before about Ron DeSantis and the way things were supposed to go down, if Trump had simply gotten out of there or the country had believed that there really was a very violent insurrection and all this other bullshit. They blamed Trump for the vaccine as the Ron people attempted to convince MAGA to do. There is another scenario that could have unfolded, and that scenario would have included Project 2025 being the entire agenda. Now, some of Trump's people were involved in entries to Project 2025, but Trump is saying right there that he told the people at Heritage Foundation that they shouldn't have done that because he didn't want to be committed to that agenda, and he never did commit to it, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be implemented. But some of those characters definitely are involved. Russ Vought, by the way, is awesome. Russ Vought gave a great interview on Tucker Carlson, and I could not recommend it more highly. I think it's even better than the Mike Benz interview on Joe Rogan, and probably more important as well. The Project 2025 thing, though, seems like that would have been the agenda for the Trump-light Ron DeSantis version of whatever this incoming presidency, quote unquote, would be. They wanted to prop up something hateable. Man, pretty incredible when looked at that way. But these are the guys who supported Project 2025, and these are the ones who are trying to say that that would be Trump's agenda. But of course it's not. Let's go back to the Daily Weimar article here in Axios. Here we are. The Nashville-based company, which is on track to surpass $200 million in revenue this year, would come with a hefty price tag. Daily Wire raised an undisclosed round of capital in 2023 at a valuation well north of $1 billion, a source told Axios. The firm was initially funded by Republican fracking billionaire Ferris Wilks but until its latest raise, it relied mostly on its profits to fuel its growth. In addition to subscriptions, the firm makes money from advertising and e-commerce. Earlier this year, its star podcaster and founder and co-founder Ben Shapiro testified on Capitol Hill as part of a broader fight to get ad agencies not to dismiss conservative media. Boring said conversations with Fortune 500 advertisers have opened up enormously since. The company has made more than $22 million on commerce sales in 2023. This year, it will make more than $20 million on its Jeremy's Razors business alone. Boring said, Mayflower Cigars, its cigar startup, has grossed $4.2 million in sales since it launched last November. And the article goes on. 1 million subscribers to its streaming service. What else do we have here? Expand its podcast suite, whatever. Okay. So $1 billion valuation, and they're considering taking on outside investment. Here is one more Daily Weimar related video from Ian Carroll, the super based and red pilled Twitter influencer who seems to be attempting in this video to give street cred to this girl, Brett Cooper, as she is leaving the Daily Wire. And apparently she's being replaced by her best friend, and he's got all the lowdown on the internal Daily Wire drama. Listen to this shillfest for about a minute or two, and then I want to show one particular part of this video that I thought was interesting and relevant.
Dude, I think the Daily Wire might be about to collapse. My buddy James just got a scoop from an inside source that Brett Cooper is getting pushed out of the Daily Wire. There's this whole crazy contract thing. And I just got word from a source of the Daily Wire that Brett is not the only big name.
By the way, this is from a week ago, just to be clear.
That is on the way out at Daily Wire. We're going to cover the Snow White movie, Pendragon, a lot about Jeremy Boring, the self-proclaimed God King of the Daily Wire. But I think the place to start is with this super controversial video from Steven Crowder from a year ago, where he turned down a $50 million contract from the Daily Wire. Bloomberg reported that Crowder complained that they weren't going to pay him enough, but that is not what Crowder was claiming.
Because it's not about the money. It's kind of unreal to me that the only thing these people can still talk about is the money. The conversation was about conservatism, the movement, and big tech. They keep talking about money. I'm talking about a country. I'm talking about a movement. I'm talking about making a difference. It's not about the money, and Jeremy and the Daily Wire know that.
So to sum it up, he was explaining how the contracts had clauses in them that the Daily Wire creators would get penalized severely if they were flagged by YouTube for content that didn't go with community guidelines, thereby tying all of their content to big tech censorship. And so if you were a content creator at the Daily Wire and you signed this contract, you'd have to censor yourself to go along with YouTube. You would be beholden to all of big tech censorship regime, which is
okay. And so, of course, Elon is free speech and has saved everybody and everything. Always important to make sure you fully shilled for Elon. Gotta get the Elon reposts. So going after Jeremy Boring, that's just fine. He gets really serious about this article that Jeremy Boring wrote, obviously tongue in cheek. I'm not a Jeremy Boring fan, but I mean, at least let's be fair. We don't have to pretend that jokes are very real and very serious. If he's got an outsized ego, fine. Maybe he does. I don't have obviously any reason to be defending the Daily Weimar, but there's better ways to attack them. They don't seem like they're about to collapse. If they are looking for all this money and potentially getting a buyout from Fox, maybe that's part of their collapse. Hey, who knows? But so the long and short is that they have gotten rid of this girl, Brett Cooper, and now Ian Carroll is attempting to give Brett Cooper a bunch of street cred. But I want you to watch what they're talking about right here.
Sort of like slander, or like, I don't know, I'm just speculating, but they're probably going to manufacture some sort of logical reason why Brett pushed herself out and they had to fill in with Reagan. Apparently, they even gave Reagan acting classes for her to emulate Brett's every movement and word. And when you watch a Reagan episode, it's kind of like, what? This is like very Brett.
Welcome back to the comment section. I'm producer Reagan filling in for Brett today. And this week, the media has rightfully been very focused on the murder trial of Laken Riley.
Turns out the likeness is not just because they're best friends.
So the Daily Weimar is doing coverage of the trial of the murderer of Laken Riley. Now, that's some multi-level op shit that we don't have to get into. But what I do know is that spending time on the salacious trial of the murderer of Laken Riley is a complete and total waste of time. What are you going to learn? That illegal immigration is bad and that criminal illegal aliens are being let into the country? Okay, we know that. That's nothing new. Why are you spending time on that? Why is the Daily Weimar directing their hosts to waste their audience's time in that way? Isn't there anything important to talk about? And I'm not saying that illegal alien crime is not important. It is. And it's particularly important to the people directly affected by it. But watching the salacious trial, following the salacious trial of an illegal alien murderer is not important. And if he's let off, oh gosh, who knows how these narratives will be spun off. But there are actual things that people need to be learning, and those people with big audiences should be teaching their audiences those things. They're not waking up the normies. They're keeping people distracted with the television show. They spend all their time on Daniel Penny. I bet they'll spend all their time on this United Healthcare CEO murder. That's what we're doing. And in the meantime, Brett Cooper is being moved out of the Daily Weimar, and Ian Carroll is running an op to make her look super based and red pilled. I mean, how much of Brett Cooper on the Daily Weimar does Ian Carroll watch? This woman, apparently, he points out, has 4.5 million subscribers on YouTube. I've never heard of her. I bet most of you have never heard of her. How's that possible? It's not like we're not in tune with all levels of media. Brett Cooper? Maybe she's great. I don't know. I can't imagine she is. If her show is exactly like that, he's saying they're copying her show exactly, and she's doing the coverage of the Laken Riley murder trial. Then he goes into, in part of his Crowder segment, he talks about how the deal from Jeremy Boring, and plays a stored voicemail of it. He says, you come in and you be a wage slave for a little while and build your brand, and then they make you a star. So you come in and you just take a small salary to start your show, build that up, build your audience. And maybe that's a great deal, by the way. I don't know. But not for Steven Crowder. Apparently, Boring was pitching that to Steven Crowder, who's obviously already built himself quite a large audience. And now he's taken over for the Project Veritas style disclosure ops. People, I guess, think he's funny. He did the Change My Mind thing, which was a good bit. I don't really have anything against the dude, but you know, when these people are never getting censored by the mainstream platforms, like Ian Carroll as the guy who's going to tell us about where the free speech is, the dude literally changes all his language so that he can stay on the mainstream platforms. And, you know, he covers a lot of interesting subjects. Gosh, man, this whole info op is just so weird. And then we had Tucker Carlson last night releasing an interview with a man named Roger Ver, who shills for his own cryptocurrencies and says that Bitcoin's been taken over by the intel agencies without explaining it at all, while Tucker Carlson shills on his behalf and tries to give him credibility and make him sound like a hero. And then Tucker immediately goes and sings the praises of Michael Flynn down at Mar-a-Lago. Weird op, man. Weird op. I am going to... Polymathanon says, I didn't know Ian Carroll till a year ago. Yeah, neither did I. He came out of nowhere. And now he is most based and red-pilled influencer there is. And listen, man, Maybe he's in his own process of awakening and all good. Just saying. Just saying, everybody form your own opinions. I don't need to lead your opinions in any direction, but the tendency to just accept the TV characters as is and be like, he's helping us. We have to love him. He's saying the things that we haven't been able to hear by someone, who's able to reach the normie sphere. Okay. I know it's so important to wake up the normies. I get it. Everybody always says that. I understand. We're waking up the normies. We're waking up the normies. Terry in the Substack replies says, as we draw closer to World War III, I try to imagine the various ways the good guys will present the catastrophe. At the moment, my normie husband is nowhere near having an epiphany about the fakeness of any of the narratives. J6, stolen election, and the fake elections. Something very big is going to happen to wake him up. Yep, and that's the unfortunate thing. I thought that we would be able to just give everyone the hose at the fake election, and instead no one was willing to get the hose. Everybody wanted to vote as hard as possible. So vote hard they did, and we have not gotten the hose. And the results and the narratives that follow conform exactly to what I projected a year ago. And again, I'm not saying that to toot my own horn, man. I'm just saying that if you look at things, you try to adhere to some objectivity and engage with some objective standards of truth and some principles, you can see that that's not the way through. If elections are fake and elections are rigged and stolen and nothing has been done to make elections not fake and not rigged and not stolen, you can't just go press a bunch of buttons on an iPad attached to a black box and hope that it's all going to turn around. Now, will Donald Trump being publicly recognized as president with the public recognition of his mandate lead to the exposure of our fake elections and a solution? Quite possibly. And I have never, ever denied that. We are going to play the cards we are dealt at all times. And these are the cards we are dealt. Okay? Not blackpilling. I'm not any more pessimistic. It's just that people are going to get a bigger hose than they could have gotten otherwise by understanding the simple truth that the shit is fake. It doesn't help to say, no, I think it's real. Now there's a chance it could be real. So we got to side with that because the claims that you're making about it all being fake, all those are just going overboard. No, they're not. No, they're not. It's all fake. It's all fake for a reason, because as you continue to believe it, they continue to exploit you. They don't need you to be on their side about these things. They just need you to believe that the fakery is still real so that you will be emotionally invested and reputationally invested in maintaining your image and your position within the party of false decorum construct. And that is what people chose to do. They wanted to root for Donald Trump. They said, and by the way, again, love Donald Trump. Donald Trump has the full public mandate, so there's nothing wrong with rooting for Donald Trump. But they wanted to tell all their liberal friends, see, I was right the whole time. Now it's time for you to cry your liberal tears while I celebrate. And everybody got to do that, and it has achieved nothing at all. Do the people who wanted to vote as hard as possible still believe in the fake government? Yes, they do. Do they still grovel? Yes. Do they still have idols? Yes. All those things have happened because we have not gotten the hose. And I hope that we will get the hose. Or, that the hose will be given to whoever asks for it. If you want to get sprayed, you will get sprayed. That is the promise of the hose. If you ask for the hose will deliver. And people are going to get the hose. And we could have gotten it out of the way, but we didn't. So now we have to participate in this fakery, I guess, till the inauguration. And people are being shown that Donald Trump has the public mandate. He went last week to Notre Dame and showed that he was the king of the world. He manhandled Manny Mac in France and then physically dominated the British royals and was quite clearly the king of the world. And this weekend, he is going to the Army-Navy game, and he is going to very clearly be the commander-in-chief as some, 80,000, 100,000 people in that stadium will be cheering on Donald Trump as president. Basically, all of those people, military affiliated in some way. So Donald Trump was the first president-elect to attend the Army-Navy game in 2016, and he will be the second president-elect to do so here in 2024. Quote unquote, president-elect. Everybody's being shown it in every way necessary. And, you know, everybody can take their time. If you want to wait around until everybody agrees that the thing we've been saying for the last 4 years is right, all good. Or you can just advance on an informational timeline, understand you are there because you are confident in living in your own views and viewpoints, and then take advantage of the fact that you are way, way ahead of virtually everyone you know in understanding what's happening about these situations. On January 20th of 2025, people will recognize Donald Trump as the president of the United States of America. Do you have to wait that long to do it? Was Joe Biden ever president? Did Joe Biden receive 81 million real lawful American votes? Was Joe Biden ever properly certified or inaugurated? No, no, no. So then why do you have to wait? Live as though it's already accomplished. And it's possible that we will see twists and turns in this narrative up to that point. Will Donald Trump face more attacks? Will Donald Trump face attempts to keep him out of office? Will the first of those attempts be on Tuesday? We're going to start getting some clues over the course of the next few days as to whether or not there will be a challenge for the Electoral College certification portion of the show, of the fake election process. That's going to be on Tuesday of next week. Maybe there will be something there. Maybe there won't be. More to come. It's going to be exciting. I don't see any Rumble rants in the Rumble chat. And so I guess with that, I will be back tomorrow at the same reasonable time on the same reasonable podcast network. I don't have a network. Masks and lockdowns don't work. They lied to you about a pandemic, and Joe Biden will never be president.
Well,
what?
You know who I am, don't you?
Well, you ain't Fiona Apple, and if you ain't Fiona Apple, I don't give a rat's ass.
Ah!
And what's wrong with being an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times? What do you think, Max?
Do you want to be an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times?
Yeah, I think I'd like to be an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times.
Down. We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
What? In my mind, that's the end game.
If you're listening for free and would like to support the show, the best way to do that is by signing up for a paid subscription at imyourmoderator.substack.com. You can find the info stream over on Telegram at t.me/veryreasonable. The merch site is cancelcouture.com. And for all my other links, you can visit linktree.com/imyourmoderator. And I'll see you soon down on the range.